Hello, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everyone, Cantonese Cat here. Gonna go through a few minor stocks very quickly. Cipher monthly chart, very nice, big green volume right here, with a very nice buy signal with very nice volume down here too. You can see that it's trying to break above this volume shelf. It's trying to break above 5.7, 5.8 up here. So far it's gotten rejected, but it's still kind of made its way back above the top part of this volume shelf. It's no longer at this big giant volume shelf over here. It broke out above 4.3 here, which is always very, very nice. It did that on big volume too. There's a potential for it to kind of back test down here around like 4.3 or so before going up higher. There's always that potential, but I wouldn't necessarily be so sure that it's going to happen because the volume buying over here is quite strong. But so was here, and it still ended up back testing down here anyway, so you never know. The more logical move would be, because there's such a big volume shelf over here still, it could still kind of back test it a little bit before going up higher. But it depends on what IWM, what Bitcoin does. IWM is the Russell 2000, which is a small cap index. I think IWM could be breaking out. Having another video to kind of talk a little bit about that. If that ends up happening, then I think a lot of the Bitcoin miners, especially the smaller cap Bitcoin miners, are going to do very well. But right now, it seems like it just kind of push above these resistance right here. It's done that once, twice, three times. The more it breaks, the more likely it's going to get weaker, and more likely once we break above 5.8 or so, I think we can potentially get to like $10 in a hurry. You have a little bit of volume down here, but I think that the resistance down here is just not going to be as powerful, especially when price already consolidated around this level for almost like 9 months now. So far, there are a lot of very positive things to look into this, because it just looks like it wants to break out above here, even though it's having a hard time doing it so far this month. The volume is here. I think something big could be happening maybe over the next month or two, potentially. There's never any guarantee, but it looks like it wants to do that. And it also looks like it wants to challenge this area here more frequently. Before it was just take like a few months. Now it's just take a couple months before it's trying to push back about that area again. So all these things are very promising. I'm going to pull up a couple of indicators here. You can see that the Bollinger Band is actually a very, very nice look to it. The 20-month moving average has been crawling up. It's been tested as support, bounced. And right now, price has spent months number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the upper part of the Bollinger Band on the monthly. So this tells me that very much likely that there's going to be a bull trend that's going to develop, and it's going to be pretty powerful when it does. The Bollinger Band is also expanding here. Upper Bollinger Band, lower Bollinger Band. Price is now hugging the upper Bollinger Band. The upper Bollinger Band is serving a little bit as a resistance so far. It just needs a little bit more expansion of the upper Bollinger Band. As it continues to expand, it will allow price to go up higher to break above these volume shelves. And once it does that, Bollinger Band would continue to serve as a resistance, but I think price could potentially get up to like 10, possibly by like Q3 of 2024. This is just a guess. There's no guarantee. This is just a guess. But look, based on the way that Bollinger Band is looking, based on the way that 20-month moving average is curling up, and based on the fact that the volume shelf over here looks like it wants to break, perhaps over the next couple of months, it could potentially get there in a hurry in a few months. I'm terrible at timing these things. I don't want you to buy any options or anything like that. I personally am not. I'm actually would be interested in buying more of this. I don't currently have a position, but I'd actually be interested in buying more of this. If it ends up getting rejected from here more and back test around, like the 4.3 kind of level, I would actually be interested in buying some over here to kind of ride along up together with this, because of a very, very nice trends being developed over here. Now, in addition to that, looking at Ichimoku Cloud, bullish cross of the Tenkan and Kijun, and right now price is above the Tenkan and above the Kijun. Now those are going to be served as support now rather than resistance. So very, very nice trend over here. Now, if you look at the weekly is a little bit more ambiguous, but it looks like it's forming like big cup here and a smaller cup over here, doesn't it? This all looks kind of like a greater accumulation range, and right now we're in the cups of trying to break above this line over here where the big cup is and also the smaller cup is. Once it breaks above that, and you have a lot of big buy volume candles over here, once it breaks above that, it can go up pretty high. Could it be getting a little bit more rejected here, going down before going up higher? Possibly. How far is it going to go down? I don't know. I'm thinking maybe like 4.3, maybe somewhere around here. potentially before going up higher. I think that's a possibility, but so far this is looking a pretty nice trend here. Ichimoku Cloud, you have a weekly bullish cross of the Tenkan Kijun. Price has gone way above the cloud at this point. Could it back test the Kijun back down here at like 4.3? I think that's a possibility before going up higher. I wouldn't necessarily count on it. If it does, great. I might start a position. We'll see what happens. I'm liking the trend so far. Currently, again, I don't have a position in this, but I'm liking this so far. If you look at the weekly, moving averages, 20 over 50 over 100. Very, very nice crawling up trend over here. This bull trend of the weekly have just started, a few months ago. And it looks like it's going to continue to push price up higher. Maybe price would want to go back down and wait for some of these moving averages, especially the 20, to kind of crawl up a little bit more before going up. Maybe. It doesn't have to. We'll see what happens, but I like the trend so far, and I like the volume so far. This is Cipher, CIFR. One of the ones that are looking pretty decent so far. I do want to go for another one, HUT. HUT is looking pretty interesting this week. It's looking like it's back testing this, very, very strong horizontal resistance level over here. It had a pretty strong week so far, and it's looking a little bit of like an ascending triangle look to it. So it's starting to look pretty decent actually. Regardless, there are a few things that are knock of HUT here. One is still hitting rejection of the top of this volume shelf over here. It's still getting rejected. So once you're getting a little bit of like an initial challenge of this volume shelf here, you don't want to get too excited about things. But it does look like it's getting a little bit more bullish now. It's still lagging behind a lot of the other miners here, though. I'll show you a little bit as to why. But it's still kind of working out at this. This is like the bottom volume shelf. Price been spending for like 2 years at this whole volume shelf down here. It's still not able to break back above. I mean, come on, man. Just because it does that, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to break out right away. It spent a lot of time over here trying to break above that area. It wasn't able to. It doesn't mean that once it breaks above that, it's not going to go up higher. It's probably going to go up a lot higher. This could potentially be one of the laggards. They're more like a late cycle boomer. And so far, it does look like it's getting a little bit more bullish, but this is more just short-term moves, and it's hitting resistance right now. So it's still a good idea to get a little bit more cautious, but it's looking a lot better. It is forming a little bit of like, on the weekly, a little bit of like a higher high after a higher low. So it's starting to maybe perhaps developing a little bit of beginning of a bull trend here, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to go back down, trying to find a higher low before going up higher, right? So if you pull up some of the other indicators here, let's look at the monthly. Now, the monthly tells you something that's a little bit more iffy here. Price has been going up here on declining volume. So there might not be a whole lot of commitment here on this move yet. There is something known as a falling three, where there's a big giant red candle over here, followed by 3 consecutive green candle here, unable to break back above over here. There's a potential for a big giant red candle bring price back all the way back down. That's a possibility. I'm not necessarily sure whether that's going to happen, but I just want to show you that there's always that possibility, especially when price is still kind of stuck within this volume shelf and having a hard time kind of break back above. A couple of other indicators that I generally show. One is the Black Cat Fund. It did end up having a buy signal over here. I do have to show this. It had a buy signal over here. There's a little bit of a potential inflow here and decreasing outflow here by big money, although the inflow is still probably need a little bit of confirmation. But it did have a buy signal over here. It is a little bit concerning. The volume is kind of going down as this buy signal happens. But the buy signal is buy signal. I just have to show you that. The other thing to show you, though, some of the things are not as bullish. I'm going to put the Bollinger Band here. The Bollinger Band is starting to flatten, and price did get on the top part of the Bollinger Band here. This is a good sign. Things are flattened out here. Let's hope that price stays above of it. If it ends up doing a little bit of back test down here on the 20 before going up, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You're looking about maybe like $10 range right around here, where it would be the top of this volume shelf. Can it go down a little bit further and wick down a little bit further to like 8.7 to back test some of these things? Possible. Can it just back test the 20 here and go up? Possible, right? The Bollinger Band is still squeezing, so we're not really having like a clear direction quite just yet. The 20-month average is still flat. So it could end up hugging it for a little bit longer and determine what it's going to do before going up further. But this is also, pretty decent, bullish development here on the monthly. Now let's look at the Ichimoku Cloud. What is Hutch showing? Nowhere near the Tenkin Kijun cross. Tenkin over here is still going to serve as resistance. So even the price mix above to the top of the volume shelf right around here, around 14, potentially even 14 and a half, 15, somewhere around here. This could still be a resistance up here, and it could end up rejecting it. It could backtest some of the lower levels down here before breaking above. So this is probably still going to be a little bit of a laggard. We'll see what happens, but there are some, even monthly, there are some pretty significant resistance over here. And also the increased volume over the last 2 months has been a little bit, downtrending. So it's a little bit of concern here, and price is still kind of stuck within this big volume shelf here. So there's still a little bit of concern, a lot of resistance above, but it is looking a lot better. The other thing, let's look at the weekly and see what it's showing you. The other thing is that, it is hitting some resistance over here still. The price currently got rejected this week by the Kijun on the weekly. Price is still below the Ichimoku Cloud. So you're talking about a lot of, these kind of resistance on the volume shelf here on the Ichimoku Cloud, on the lines that comes along the Ichimoku Cloud. Although it's very, very nice that it's using Tenkin, potentially flipping it from resistance to support, it's still going to probably need some time to kind of work this out before it pushes up for the cloud and go up a lot higher. And it could take longer than we anticipate. This is a laggard. Although it's been performing very, very nice last week, there's still a lot of concerns here in terms of whether or not the trend is developing or not. So far, it still doesn't look like the weekly trend is developing quite just yet. Another thing to show you that I don't think the weekly trend is developing quite just yet is price got rejected off the 50-week moving average. The 50-week moving average is flattening though, right? It went from rising to flattening. So it's not surprised it got rejected here at all, although it did have a bullish 50 to 100 cross here. 20 is still below both 50 and 100, and 100 pointing down. 20 is trying to point up. It's just kind of a little bit flattening right here. So it might take at least of maybe a couple months for the bull trend to really start to really truly develop. I would like to see at least 20 crossing over 50, and that could potentially take a couple months for it to happen. It still hasn't happened yet, and price got rejected off of 50 pretty clearly this week. So it's just reasonable to be a little bit more cautious on this. We'll see what happens. So there are some pretty interesting things that are happening. I sold out of this, and I bought other stocks like CleanSpark, things like that, weeks and weeks and weeks ago. And since then, CleanSpark has given me a very, very nice gain. Even though I think CleanSpark is kind of pulling back pretty soon, I still think that was probably the right decision based on the gains that I've had when I was buying at the single digits for CleanSpark, when I was kind of selling out of this. It doesn't mean that this won't boom. I think it is working on what it needs to work on. I like the fact that it's making these higher highs, higher low, and higher high again, but it's still going to meet a lot of resistance moving forward. A couple of other smaller ones that I want to look at. One that I do have a position in, which is Irene Energy Limited. Let's go ahead and pull up the monthly chart here. I'm going to close down this over here. The monthly chart is doing something pretty interesting here. It's kind of forming a little bit like a higher high, higher low kind of look over the last year or so. And there's a lot of volume that has come in over the last few months into such a small market cap kind of thing. I think Irene has a market probably about like a $500 million or something like that. So a lot of volumes coming in. Fintel also shows a lot of buying volume from institution as well. So it's kind of an interesting look. It's got a little bit of, like a wedge kind of look, or a channel kind of look, to kind of keep pushing price up a little higher over time. If you pull up some of the indicators though, let me go ahead and show you the volume shelves over here. It is kind of stuck at the peak of the volume shelf over here, where it tried to break below, couldn't, and then tried to break above, couldn't, and having a little bit like a hammer candle here. It's not really a hammer top or bottom, it's just like a hammer. It's a little bit of like indecision. It doesn't know what it wants to do. Although it's very nice it bounced off of this volume shelf down here, is able to find pretty clear support, pretty clear demand at that level. Right now price is stuck at this big volume shelf here, which could potentially be resistance still for the next month or two, although I think it's probably going to end up challenging the shelf up here again at like $7. like it did before, and there's a good chance over the next couple of months it can break above this big giant volume shelf over here and break above. A couple of other indicators to pull. One is the Bollinger Band. Bollinger Band is starting to have a little bit of expansion. Price had back tested 20-month moving average. 20 moving average is pointing up. This is a pretty nice bull trend that's starting to develop. No guarantees. Price also spent the last 4 months at the upper part of the Bollinger Band, and the Bollinger Band is starting to expand. All of these are good signs that there could be a bull trend that's being developed here that could end up being very, very long-term, sustainable, monthly bull trend. Another indicator I always look at is the Ichimoku cloud, still pretty far away from having a Tenkan Kijun cross, although it is looking better than HUD. The Tenkan is still serving as resistance, as you can see that it kind of got rejected off the monthly Tenkan so far. But eventually, if you have big volume like this, it does seem like there's big buy volume over here. I think eventually it's going to end up breaking above the Tenkan, flip it as support and go higher, because of this kind of trend that seems to be more bullish than bearish, and because of the curling up of the 20-month moving average. I think most likely this is going to end up breaking above and going back to flip this Tenkan from resistance over here to support over here like it did over here. It's probably going to end up happening. It's probably going to end up going a lot higher. So weekly chart actually doesn't look bad at all for Irene. It's just been bouncing between the cloud oscillating. It did bounce above the Ichimoku cloud here, but it's finding a little bit of resistance of the Tenkan and Kijun right above of it. But so far it is kind of just consolidating into a wedge, if you will, into a symmetrical wedge, if you will. If it's able to break above the wedge, I think it's going to go up a lot higher. It could take another month or so to kind of sort things out because we're still hitting a little bit of resistance here. But so far things are looking good in terms of the weekly. If you're looking at the moving averages, this actually looks very, very nice. 20 is orange here. 20 is about 50, is about 100. And because 20 is pointing up so much, I think it's going to be a very poor resistance. I think eventually price is going to end up breaking back above and go up higher. If you also look at the bull market support band, the price has closed back inside of the bull market support band after spending, a couple of weeks underneath of it. Matter of fact, the last couple of weeks actually formed a tweezer bottom. Here, I wouldn't necessarily call it a tweezer top. I would say it's submitting some resistance here, but I mean, like the top is like here. It's nowhere near the top. It looks like there's a nice trending kind of push price up, possibly a little bit higher, especially since the 20 is pointing up. Tested to 50, try to get close to 100, but couldn't quite get there. Right now, this is a bull trend because 20 is over 50, over 100. 100 is starting to flatten. 50 is pointing up, 20 is pointing up. Nice bull trend. That's Irene. One last one I want to talk about. We do have a couple of minutes. I just want to talk a little bit about WULF. Also have a very small position here as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn on these indicators and do it in a more systematic way. Let's look at a monthly first. The monthly is actually showing a pretty interesting thing here. It does look a little bit like a cup and handle here within a bigger potential cup and handle here. It does look like there's a lot of volume that's been coming in over the last few months. There's an increase in gaining of interest of the stock here. And because this does look like an accumulation pattern with increased buying volume, really over the last year or so, it does look like it probably wants to break up higher. And one good thing about WULF is you can actually have enough price history. You can see there's a buy candle WULF this month. There's well info that's finally showing up over here on the blackhead, funder, bagger fund flow, oscillator indicator. There's a buy signal over here, which means that the big money is here. It is showing as inflow. So there are a couple of really interesting things there that I can see here. In terms of the Bollinger Band, it is actually showing some nice Bollinger Band expansion. And it is nice to kind of back test the 20 here, found support. Now price has spent about 4 months on the top part of the Bollinger Band here. It is challenging the upper Bollinger Band, is pushing the upper Bollinger Band up, allowing price to go up potentially higher over the next few months. So all of these are very positive signs. Now, what is not as positive is if you look at the Ichimoku cloud. Ichimoku cloud, it did turn Tenkan from resistance back into potentially into support because price does end up closing above the Tenkan here. But it's still pretty far away from the Kijun, so there's not really like a nice Tenkan Kijun cross here to show you that. But this looked just like how Dogecoin looked just a couple months ago. If things can happen fast, and if things happen fast, you might end up getting a cross potentially by like Q2 or early Q3 of 2024. So we'll see. But so far, I'm encouraged by a lot of the developments they're making here on the monthly. Let's look at a weekly. Weekly also showed that the price had broken back above the weekly Ichimoku cloud. It's just been kind of been oscillating here around here for a while. But unlike Irene, where it's below the Tenkan and Kijun, WULF is actually above both. So on weekly, actually WULF actually looks a little bit more ready to go up than Irene does. Another thing that also is very interesting too is if you look at the moving averages, you just had a 20-week moving average cross about 50. You have a very nice bullish cross over here, and both 20 and 50 just had a bullish cross over the 100-week moving average just in February. So you have a lot of very nice weekly momentum over here. Can it go back and back test before going up? Sure, there's always that possibility. But so far this weekly actually looks very, very nicely here as well. So all of these miners I talk about, they all are going through their own technicals. Cipher probably looks the best out of the four. HUD is probably still underperforming despite the fact that it did really well over the last week. And you also have these really, really tiny small cap Terra Wolf as well as Irene. They're doing pretty decent in terms of technicals. So I think that it's still a pretty decent time when it comes to these smaller, lesser known miners. I just want to try to share with you my thoughts. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.